All right. Right now I have it so you can unmute yourselves if you just want to say good morning or
Good morning, family.
hey, good morning.
Good morning from Alberta.
It's Hattie.
It's Harry.
Good morning, Harry. Great to hear your voice.
To let you know, guys, it's minus 16 here today.
Well, God bless you. We're starting to warm up here in St. George. This is where it starts to, well, it was pretty cold yesterday, I guess. So we should start warming up here soon. That's why we live here in St. George. If you love the warm weather. Okay.
Oh, we love it just here. Perfect.
Yeah. Some people love it cold. That's the awesomeness about the, I guess the entire universe, but the complexities of the universe, the uniqueness and the individualism is the spice of life. All right, I guess I'm going to mute the background noise out here. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to go over, we're going to jump right into the deep end this morning, you guys. So like I said, get your seatbelts on. And I guess just come into this with an open mind. You know, I when I share this information, I share it with the perspective that everybody's just is believing it and they understand it and they're making the connections and there isn't any issues. We're just like masterminding at the highest level, but I need to also just remind myself that there was a time when I didn't question the stuff. I just wanted to put it into action and see if it worked, because that's where I was at in my life. It was just at that point, you know, I was just prepared to like be an open and receiving student, and then put it into action and see if it worked. And lo and behold, it worked. When I put discipline behind it, though, it wasn't like just like haphazardly go about, striving to understand and internalize it and apply it. I mean, it was at the highest level. It was like, this was it. This was my last, the way I looked at it, it was my last chance, because I had exhausted everything I knew to do at that point. And as much as I put excellence to everything, this was it. I mean, to me, it was the make or break. And so, yeah, I put everything into it, not questioning it, just putting everything into it. And so again, when I teach this, I'm in a sense, I can't help it, but I come from that place of, you get it, right? Let's just go on. Let's do this. Let's put it into action. Let's get this stuff and learn it and apply it. And I realized that, hey, there's other, now let me just clarify. I realize now that there are parameters and dynamics and things that I had learned and experienced in my life that facilitated that. And not everybody's at that place. However, any truth that we can learn is going to be a benefit, and it will start to frame up, and it will start to become this wisdom that Solomon talks about. Like, it's the pearl of great price. And when we get it, we become these conscious creators that we can have, do, and be anything that we want. You could fill up like it says in the Bible, you can fill up all of the rooms in the storehouse to overflowing with anything you want. You can fill up this room with that. You can fill up your other room with this. And it's because you've learned and you've gotten to that place where you have that wisdom and intelligence. It's that growing brighter and brighter until the perfect day. And I'm not perfect. I'm just better than I used to be. I don't know it all. I just know a lot more than I used to. And it's truth. And truth empowers the individual. It empowers them to act intelligently, confidently. So some of this stuff that we're going to jump into right now, when it all comes together, when it all fits, these are big pieces right here. Like, this is a big piece of the pearl of great price, where you'd give up everything to have this pearl. What is that pearl? It's the pearl that allows you to create anything else that you want. That's why you would give up everything for the pearl of great price. It's not just a belief in a certain one. I don't know how to frame that up. it's not just one belief in a certain thing that belief then allows me to have peace in my life. But yet I still have health challenges. I still have financial challenges. I still have circumstances that are overpowering me. There's a lot of drama in my life. And that's that one belief that gives you a lot of peace, but yet that's a powerful belief. And for me personally, without wanting to offend anybody, but I'm just going to tell you where I'm coming from and some of the foundations for me is my belief in Christ and the Christianity. However, having that belief and that peace that comes with that doesn't necessarily take away all of these problems in my life. And God he didn't create me and put me on this earth to have problems in my life. The problems are going to be there, but they're to develop the individual and to see the contrast and the oppositions and then learn that there's a better way. But in order to accomplish that better way, I need to improve my standards. There's some things and that's the pearl of great price, is coming to understand that I can govern and guide myself in a way that I could fill up the room with this, and I could fill up the room with that. I could fill up my life with this impact. I could fill up my life with this results. And it's not a matter of hope. It's a matter of it being, like it comes into existence because I willed it to, because I commanded it to. Neville Goddard has a book called At Thy Command, something like that. And that's the pearl of great price. And when we align ourselves with all of these other laws that we're going to learn, the law of compensation, we create heaven on earth, because following the law of compensation has no other effect or result than creating heaven on earth. It's where everybody wins. Everybody's like receives value from what you're doing on the highest level. I mean, it can be taken to the highest level, but the law of compensation demands that that's the result. When you align your life and your actions with the law of compensation, meaning I'm providing a product and service, and in return, I'm going to get this. Well, the law of compensation, when you understand it, everybody wins. You're not taking from anybody. You're not in competition with anybody. So even as you're providing, you're still not taking away from somebody else because you're receiving something. It's on the creative level, not the competitive level. And so it's the result of having the pearl of great price and aligning yourself with these principles. If you don't, like, let's say you want to fill the storehouse with this, you could do that in a way that would be manipulative and taken advantage of, but it won't last. It's built on a sandy foundation because you're violating other foundational laws. So you could be you could cheat and take advantage of people, manipulative, but it won't last. And so, there's industries and the way that that society had brought those industries into being here in the United States in the early 1900s, but they didn't last. They just were a stepping stone to get to the next point of evolution. Wallace Wattles, or it might have been Charles Handel, said, God will be rid of those, but there's a stepping stone that is evolving. So anyway, that pearl of great price, you couldn't go and take advantage of people. You could, but it won't last. It never lasts because it's violating when you violate principles, there's a destructive result that is at play. And so the knowing conscious, the more intelligence, and you wouldn't do that if you had the whole pearl. If you had the pearl of great price, you wouldn't violate these other principles. And that's why there's an ongoing process of learning and learning. So you're violating less and less principles, which raises your standards, which raises your results. You're living a heavenly life, a blissful life. So let's go into some of the principles here. I want to read, and then I'm going to show on my screen here. I'm going to bring up my iPad. In my personal studies this morning, as I was listening to Tony Robbins and just some of the things that have been going on and putting it all together in this morning in the Science of Getting Rich, I was just writing down things that were coming to me as I was listening to Tony Robbins, the 30 minutes for the next 30 years of your life. So just tapping in, right? Getting into the zone. Like Esther Hicks says, when you really focus on something for about 17 seconds, the next thought that expands that thought you've been thinking on, that concept, that image, that feeling that you're generating by thinking about something, when you do that for 17 seconds, it takes you to the next one. And then the next one that feeds and expands that. So if you get angry at somebody and you do that for at least 17 seconds, you're going to get angrier and angrier and angrier because you went into this momentum. It's a principle of focusing on something with an intensity for a certain amount of time. And it's around 17 seconds that you do that. Most people can't even do that, though. They can't stay focused on one thought for 17 seconds on their own, consciously, in their own blueprinted way that serves them. Usually they're squirrel, like within less than 17 seconds, unless the environment dictates to them otherwise by something that really triggered something. Right? So we could do that in a car. We could be driving, somebody cuts us off. That's the environment, and it makes you angry, and you hold that anger because that person's driving right in front of you, and you could get more and more irate, and then all of a sudden you have road rage, right? But we could also use that in a positive way, and in a way that expands more and more positivity by focusing on a very intentional thought, an idea, a concept, an image. That's why vision boards work very well. You could focus on that intentional serving, law of compensation built in thought and image. And as you think on that longer and longer and expand it, a feeling starts to generate behind it. And that's what we're after, is the feeling. So I'm just going to read from a paragraph in the end of the last chapter. Don't worry about finding it, just listen. It is the natural and inherent impulse of life to seek to live more. It is the nature of intelligence to enlarge itself. Think of intelligence like that buzz that's on the TV when the TV used to, end its broadcast, and those little black and white, that buzz. But we could see that with our eyes. Imagine that going on all around us, and there isn't anywhere that it's not going on. It's even going on in the cells of your body. It's going on in the wall. Bob Proctor says everything vibrates. If you had the microscope and you could see it, you would look at the wall and it would be moving around in buzzing energy. And electrons and bosons and quarks, neurons. So, or not neurons, but bosons and quarks and atoms. So that's everywhere. It's and he'll frame it up here, the inner spaces of everywhere. There isn't anywhere that intelligence doesn't exist on that level. The universe of forms has been made by formless living substance throwing itself into form in order to express itself more fully. All right, so let me read this again. It is the natural and inherent impulse of life to seek to live more. You can't turn it off. It's 24/7. There is not 1 millimeter of a second that isn't like seeking that expression. It is the nature of intelligence to enlarge itself. So abundance, there is a law of abundance. The number one law in the universe is expansion, is progress. That's the number one law. You can't turn it off. It's its desire, right? And it's always in a constant flux and change, in state of change. But it's seeking expression. It's seeking expression through nature, but also through us. We can't turn it off. Not even when you're asleep, you can't turn it off. It's the little child, I think Wallace Wattles talks about, or it might have been Wallace Wattles, where the young child is at the piano and he's trying to play the piano, and then all of a sudden in frustration, he hits the keys. And the adult says, well, what's wrong? Why are you frustrated? And the child says, well, because I can hear the music in my head. I just can't get it right in my fingers. I can't translate what's in my head to my fingers into the piano to get that beautiful music to come out. That's that infinite intelligence that's seeking greater expression. It does it through nature, but it also flows to and through us. And you can't turn it off. Now you could start to develop yourself to where you can bring that beautiful message, that beautiful image, that beautiful music through you through practice and repetition, and also the thoughts that we hold. So the universe, okay, so it's constantly seeking expression. That is a principle. There is no principle of lack, of not enough. That's breaking the law of abundance. Or living, if we were living on a spectrum, let's do this. If we were on a spectrum, there are only principles. There is no lack, right? So this is the principle of abundance. And it goes in two directions, negative and positive. And the more we move upwards, the greater the abundance in our life. The more we go towards the negative end, not implementing the law of abundance and the principles that help us to bring it forth, the less abundance we're going to have. Now, people will look at that as lack and not enough, but there is no principle of not enough. You can't say, I'm going to go live the principle of not enough. It's either you're going to implement and understand how to facilitate and expedite the principle of abundance. And so as you live that principle, it starts to manifest in your life. It's the not living that principle and at the degrees that you can. So if you look at this in levels of degrees, like a thermometer with its little, right down here is minus 17, right here. So, all right, so there, the further we are down here, the less abundance we're gonna have in our life. But that doesn't mean that there's not enough. All you gotta do is just incrementally move up this way and there will be more abundance in your life. And the fact that you're not experiencing abundance absolutely means you can experience abundance. And this is that opposition, that contrast that we must see and experience in this life. It's not bad. It's like not necessarily bad that there's people experiencing not enough abundance. It just draws a contrast for us. Now, the unconscious, unknowing person might look at that and develop a philosophy of hate and jealousy and vindictiveness and, hatred, because they see somebody living a life up here, and what that life, they start to covet that, and because they feel like they can't get it, they start to look at themselves as a victim, and they start to despise somebody who's living it up here. But what they're really despising is the principle of truth and light, that person's living with the principle of abundance. Right? And then there's all these other areas and principles, the law of compensation, principle of compensation, the principle of love, the principle of service. There's a lot of other, well, that would be the law of compensation, the principle of service. But there's these other principles that we can put around this. Somebody could have abundance in their life, but in other areas of their lives, they're living way down on the negative end. And so they're having some frustrations and some drama and some disappointments, maybe in the principle of relationships, right? The relationships aren't so good because on the relationship principle, they don't understand these principles as well as they understand and live the principle of abundance. So if we were to put it in a pie, there's some areas where we would be doing awesome, like abundance. So if you're living on the principle of abundance up at this level, your life is awesome as far as being able to have, do, and buy the things that you want, and have these luxuries in your life, and have this comfort, and enjoying nice artwork and craftsmanship in the cars you're buying and in the house you live in, because you're living that law of abundance. But in relationships, if you're down here, there's going to be an emptiness. There's going to be a feeling of wanting more there. And there's a lot of different areas in our lives where we, the more we can move up the positive end on these principles, that would be the pearl of great price. When we have all of these areas and we understand all of these principles, in all thy getting, get understanding, not just in the area of abundance, but also in the area of relationships. Not just in abundance and relationship, but also health. There's a principle of health. And when you're violating the principle and you're experiencing your health down on this end, you're not able to move around and enjoy life on a physical level as somebody who's living health up on this level. So the pearl of great price would be learning these principles in all of these areas. Now, when you live the principles and you understand them, which is really on a spiritual level, it's on a thought level. As spiritual beings, we're capable of thinking. I think, therefore I am. But so many people think they're a physical being and that's it. And they disregard their thoughts, and therefore, they're not even going to put time and energy and effort into trying to understand these spiritual principles, which would then change their lives on a physical level. Again, as a spiritual being, I think, therefore I am. Well, how's the thinking going, right? Well, that would be based on your understanding. So in all thy getting, get understanding. So understanding who we are and how we operate and how we collaborate this dance with the universe as physical beings, the greater our lives are and the more impact we can have. So if we're living the law of compensation, that principle, the law of compensation, is very closely tied to the law of abundance. But it also, like, we could do our vision boards and be accomplishing the vacations that we want, maybe the car that we want, but we don't really have the money to afford it. So, we've utilized that ability to focus on something and get it. But if you can't afford it, but you got it, then there's going to be some stresses in your life. But the law of compensation, so let's say law of compensation is a mutual transaction between two people or more. And so you're going to be compensated. You added value to somebody's life with what you offered them. The higher you are on the level of the law of compensation, this transaction that you're making with somebody, the greater the value that person's going to receive. If you're down here, yeah, they're going to be getting some. Well, let's not quite go down. Let's not go down quite so far. If I'm right here, they're not going to be receiving as much value in their lives through that mutual transaction, but there's still some value. It's better than down here. And the further we go down, now we're really breaking the law of compensation. We're cheating people. We're lying. We're manipulative. You just can't say that word fast. Does that make sense? So I feel like isogenics is the highest value I could be adding to somebody in two very important areas in their life: creating abundance and adding value with their health and with their wealth. And there's no limit, like there's no ceiling. Like the more isogenics you put in your body, you're eliminating. So if we go on the law of health, let's go on the principle of health. And we have these little increments on positive and negative side. So on the law of health, if in my transaction that I'm adding value to somebody, with their health, well, let's say for me personally, using the products, if I'm using, we introduce people to create a healthy lifestyle, right? Because we understand the principle behind that and not overwhelming their paradigm. So we get people started on the Forever Pack. Now, I would say just with the Forever Pack, we're really high on the health level principle. We're supporting every cell in their body on a very high level when it comes to the principle of health. Now, Pop-Tarts, like that's way down here. Pop-Tarts, Frosted Flakes, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, soda, putting alcohol in your body because that's a destructive thing to the body and the cells, shortens your telomeres much faster. Smoking, those would all be down here. I would love Pop-Tarts and smoking in the same area, okay? Down on that, violating the principles of health. But I would put the Forever Pack way on the high end. Now, if I start taking more shakes, like more than one a day, I'm going to be moving up. I'm putting that shake in my body twice a day. I'm going to be moving up. I start cleansing and using the nutritional cleanse for life, that intermittent fasting with nutrition, resting the organs and giving the body the chelators it needs to get the poisons and the heavy metals and the toxins out. Well, then I would be moving up that health line. And so with isogenics, the more I'm putting in because it is a lifestyle. It does address the need of nutrition on a food basis. The more I put in, the more I'm going up. How much could I put in? And then add the physical. So then we would go to physical exercise, right? So fitness, I guess would put fitness, physical fitness, PE, that's a principle. Now I add to that health that I'm getting on a very high, unprecedented level. There is no way you could get the results anywhere else that you can get in isogenics. That's principally based, you guys. I'm not saying that out of exuberance for building my business and exaggerated claims. I'm saying that based on what I know about science and what that product is doing when you put it in your body. It's unparalleled. You can't get the principle of health into your body anywhere else like you can in isogenics. Am I saying there's not some other great products out there that could move you up that scale as an individual product? Yeah, but it's unparalleled when it comes to isogenics, all right? And they've done an amazing and phenomenal job of these other products. So the more I add about these other products, the more I'm going up that principle. All right, so and the same thing, I add exercise now to the principle of health. I just took two areas right here. I just added two pearl of great price, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and these two areas are rocking in my life because I'm way up on the obedience to those principles. It's obedience that brings blessings. Obedience to what? Obedience to principles. And the more you understand the principle, the greater can be your behavior and your obedience factor. That's a decision. Once we understand the principle, now I'm going to decide. We could say it's discipline, but it's also obedience. It's obedience to the principle that brings blessings. So now I'm a conscious, intentional being and a conscious, intelligent, obedient being, spiritual being. And in a physical world, that shows up in a way that is holding out for others an example of what life can really be. Like Marianne Williamson says, it is your light, right? And when we do this, we unconsciously give other people the right to do the same. We unconsciously empower other people to do the same because we're holding out as an example, a role model of what life is capable of being. And she also says, but it's this that most people are afraid of. It's not your darkness down here that you're afraid of. It's your light that you're afraid of. Well, I wouldn't say she uses afraid, but it's not really afraid. It's that stepping out of what is your comfort zone and your norm. And maybe being afraid of being let down. Well, you're not going to be let down by the law. This has to happen. Your life has to change. It's action and reaction up at this level, just like it is down here. It's action and reaction. It's cause and effect. It's immutable. It's infallible. That's why there's a science to getting rich. Oh my gosh, aha moment. The title of the book, The Science of Getting Rich. It's like a mathematical equation. You get everything in there in the exact right way. You have to get the same answer every single time. Now, the uniqueness and the complexity, there's an awesomeness to uniqueness and personalizing and complexity. The complexity is that you're not going to see and enjoy everything the way I see and enjoy everything. So there's going to be these different dynamics. I might like watercolor paintings by a certain author. You might like oil paintings by, not an author, by an artist. You might not like paintings at all. You like sculptures. All right, so that's the uniqueness and the complexities, that there's the principle that everybody has to obey, but the rules of engagement, that's the uniqueness and personality that we get to put in it. You can't violate the principle. The artist, the sculpture, the mechanic, the inventor, they all have to obey the same principles, but the rules of engagement are unique and personalized. Right? So here we have this intelligence that's ready to back us up at any given moment. The moment we change the way we do something, we get a different reaction immediately, because that's how this intelligence works. That's teeming and buzzing and filled with life, just waiting for you to act on it. So the universe of form has been made by formless living substance, throwing itself into form in order to express itself more fully. So here's this energy and this vibration coming through you, this energy that just can't be stopped. We could frame that up with concepts and images and ideas. All of those, look, the greatest law in the universe is the law of vibration. Bob Proctor says that right at the very beginning of the movie The Secret. It says the number one law of the universe is vibration, because it's a vibration that creates the progress. But vibration is always happening. Nature's always expressing that vibration in a certain form. We are always expressing that vibration in a form. So whether that's good, bad, or indifferent progress, it's progress nonetheless. Can't be stopped. You can't stop the vibrations that you're sending out in a signal. Your images, concepts, and ideas, can't turn that off. You might be doing them subconsciously and not intelligently and in ways that don't serve you, but you can't turn it off. And whether you know you're doing it or not, it doesn't matter. It's still doing it. It's a matter of getting to the intelligence and the wisdom and understanding that you can be in control of that. And you can intelligently, by design, Carrie's Mercedes on the license plate says, by design. You can take that energy that's coming through and frame it up with images and ideas which create up an exact replica vibration. There's a vibration to match every image. Just like there's a vibration to match every color. Colors are just vibrations, right? There's a vibration to match every image and idea and emotion that you could come up with in your brain. Scientifically speaking, let me pull it up. PowerPoints. I think it's the law right here. So as a physical being now, working in a physical world, we're not just spiritual beings anymore. We're physical beings living in a physical world. And so your brain is a tool to manifest this physical reality. And the way it works is that you come up with an idea. Most people's ideas and concepts of themselves are already, in most cases, inflicted on them, right? And so you come up with this identity through being raised from a young toddler, taking on ideas and concepts that the environment and grown-ups have put on you. Now it's the people who say, forget that, I'm dropping out of school. I'm not taking that idea and that concept that you want to place on me. I'm going to be one of the crazy ones that Steve Jobs talks about. And I'm going to come up with my ideas and concepts. Now, maybe they don't know it on this level, that is what they're doing, but their spirit knows it and they feel it and they listen to their spirit more than traditions and what the environment is, expectations are on people. And so it's the crazy ones that start doing this on a more intentional level. Whether they know the science behind it and really know that pearl of great price on an intelligent level, not so much, but they are going to use their willpower and stick to the ideas and images that they have. So when you have an idea and a concept of yourself, a thought, it goes through the hypothalamus, right? Your brain frames all of this up with billions and billions of neurons, and it arranges things in a certain way, and it impacts the hypothalamus. Well, the hypothalamus is the ultimate pharmacy. That's what they call it in the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? And the guy that I shared his YouTube, I can't remember his name right now, but he's in that movie. He's one of the main people that are speaking through it. It's kind of like the movie The Secret, kind of like a documentary and getting certain people's ideas, philosophies. Well, he's in there, and he calls it the ultimate, I think he does, or maybe the lady that's in there, calls it the ultimate pharmacy. Now, we know a pharmacy at Walmart, what they're doing is they're taking an arrangement of certain chemicals that they've arranged in a certain way. Well, that creates a certain vibration in your body and it blocks certain things. It overrides other vibrations that are in your body. So you're putting in this chemical that's forcing the body to vibrate in a certain way, which then produces a result. It doesn't fix the problem, but it hides the problem, because this vibration is overcoming the vibration that your body's producing through the way the cells have started to malfunction. And you're masking the result. So that's the pharmacy at Walmart. They're using chemicals to arrange atoms and molecules in a certain way, and then create these nucleotides or whatever they're called, okay? So your brain is the ultimate pharmacy, because it can arrange any chemical pattern, chemicals that are within the brain, we call those chemicals. Those chemicals are arranged by the hypothalamus in any pattern that your images are producing. It will mirror reflect. The hypothalamus will put together, I think they're called nucleotides. I think that's what we're calling them. Nucleotides, or just the arrangement of these chemicals. They produce a molecule or whatever it is, all right? And then those are delivered into the bloodstream. And immediately, that arrangement of those chemicals creates a vibration. It's a vibration that matches your image and your thought and your ideas and the concepts around that. Well, once it gets into the blood, it docks into the cells, that nucleotide or whatever it is. I'm sorry, I'm not real confident in what I should be calling that right now. See if it says it on here. Anyways, that arrangement of chemicals docks onto receptors of the physical cells. So you have an idea that's in your brain. It goes through the hypothalamus, creates this chemical arrangement that docks into a cell. And now it's really vibrating on a physical level, just like a drum when you hit it. And you can tune the drum to different sounds, different pitches. You can do that with a guitar, right? You're giving a very exact vibrational trigger to your cells, and now they're doing it on a physical level. And you have trillions of cells. And so when you're scared by somebody frightens you, that's how fast those chemical reactions can get into the blood and dock. It's almost immediate. You don't even really notice the correlation of, oh, I just had an image and a thought or something happened and now I feel this way. All right, so that vibration is going to be communicating with this universal formless substance. And it's going to start to collapse it into a physical form. The actual thinking stuff that is teeming in this intelligence is going to start to arrange itself, because you're sending the signal to do that. And it starts to arrange itself in the physical world. And it manifests in your physical reality. Your house and the house you're living in, you don't realize it, but you attracted one that was already built, or you had one built. In my case, because the house that I saw in my vision book, so in my dream book, we took a picture standing in front of a house, and we had no idea how we were going to be able to afford this house. There was no way that we knew how we would be able to afford it. But I got the family, and we went and stood in front of this house right here. I said, jump out, let's take the picture. And I wrote up things about that house we lived in, what the kitchen looked like, what the flooring looked like, the rooms that were in that house. And I just read that book over and over, and I felt what it was like to be in that house. Very detailed, like even the doorknobs and things like that. You can be super detailed. I didn't write that up in that book, but I'm just exaggerating the detail. Like, you want to be detailed. I did detail my kids sitting in a room, and it was their own room, and they were sitting on their own bed enjoying a certain thing, right? And I was creating these scenarios, and I read that book twice a day, every day. And I did it without like negating it and wondering how it's going to happen. I did it and was living it in my mind like we were in that house and my kids were experiencing those things. And what I was doing was I was impacting my hypothalamus. And my hypothalamus was creating these. They docked into my cells, And now I was being a certain way. You don't get what you want, you get what you're being. So now I was being the individual that lives in that kind of house, and my kids are enjoying that kind of room, and we're enjoying that kind of living room and the backyard with the pool in it. And it's arranging all of those things while I'm doing that. Science has proven that your mind doesn't know if it's really happening or not. When you meditate and you get into that state, they've now proven through studies using computers and the electrodes they hook up to them, the mind reacts just like as if you were doing it with your actual eyes and feeling it with your senses. So, of course, the hypothalamus is going to say, okay, your wish is my command. I'll put that together for you. And that's going to go into your cells. And then all of these things. Now, at that point, how does it really work? I don't know. I just know enough to do what I need to do. God takes care of the rest. Now, he's not sitting there waiting for me with a magic wand saying, okay, Dave finally deserves it. Let me wave my wand now. No, he's already created. He's woven into the fabric of the entire universe, cause and effect. So he's already answered my prayers. All I got to do is my part. He's not sitting there waiting and observing me and watching me until I do. I think he probably has other better things that he wants to do that makes him happier, because he's a being that wants to engage in things. He's not sitting there watching me and waiting for me to make the right move. He's already woven that into the fabric of the entire universe. So I know that God's at work and I'm collaborating with God. It's not me. It's not ego. It's not nature. God created nature. He framed it up. So as that goes out, I don't really know how it works. I just know that like a magnet, these divine connections, the right connections start happening. As I was reading that book, I put in here a picture of me about my health, because if you know, my health was terrible. I was as far away as I could possibly be from my health that I was used to when I was a teenager, that I could possibly be. But I wrote it and I framed it up. Look, I took a picture of me lifting these little 5-pound dumbbells and like I'm working out, right? And then I wrote the things that I remembered and what I could come up with my imagination about perfect health. So I'm creating a concept and an idea and an image through reading the book. The book, my brain doesn't know if I'm experiencing it for reals or not. And so it's just I'm creating the feeling behind that concept. So the hypothalamus says, okay, when it comes to Dave's health, his wish is my command. Boom, makes these, they go into there. And then that power that's blinking your eyes right now and breathing you and pumping your heart is the same power that's going to start to do these things that I'm not even aware of. All right, so I did it with my health. I did it with this right here. And I had already exhausted everything I knew to do when it came to my health, if you know my story and what I was doing. I wasn't going into how this is going to happen. That wasn't what was going on in my brain. I was living the experience that my health was already there. That was the idea and the concept and the image. My health is already awesome. Even though it wasn't in the physical world, it was in my brain now, because I wasn't negating it and thinking, well, no, my health really isn't that good. No, in my mind, that's a discipline. That's a discipline of your mental faculties. I wasn't letting my mind take control. I was telling my mind where to go. And I wasn't very good at it at first, but that's why the way I framed it up, it got me excited. And it was like a compelling vision. So it's easy to think about the things that we really want in this way. You better be framing up your compelling vision with the things you really want, because it's easier to think about those things in a way that you don't negate them. We dream. Kids do it all the time, right? We daydream. And this one here, you guys, I put this in the book. Carrie and I found a room in the library, and the doors were closed, the lights were off, we were opening doors. No, that's not one. I just knew there's got to be a podium somewhere at the library in one of those rooms, because people meet there and they do little meetings. We found the room, the lights were off, there was the podium up at the front of the room. It felt like we were sneaking in the room, but the door was unlocked, so we weren't, went in the room, flipped the light switch on. Carrie has the camera. I go run behind the podium and I hold my hand up like I'm speaking to somebody. There was nobody in that room, you guys. It was dark before we went in there. But in my mind, it wasn't dark. I framed up words and things that I wanted to do and making an impact in people's lives, adding value. It was in a way that it did add value and how it was framed up. So in my mind, I'm now a presenter. I didn't know what I was literally going to be talking about and adding value to. I framed up as best I could in that picture, the impact that I was making on people's lives, but I had no idea how I was going to become a presenter in the world. And now that's all I do. I did it like 6 times yesterday on like 6 different Zooms I got to present. I've done over 5,000 meetings. I spoke in front of 15,000 people as a keynote speaker for Isogenics. I didn't know back when I created this book how that was going to happen, but my brain knew how to put together the mirror reflection chemical arrangement that docked into my cells that then communicated to that thinking stuff. It's the thinking stuff that knew how it was going to happen. And again, I don't know how that happens. That's beyond my reasoning ability as a finite human being. But I was taught that these are the things that would happen. Now, they didn't teach me in this way. I'm going deeper and put together pictures and explain it in a way that's hopefully a little bit easier to comprehend what's going on. Now, whether you believe that or not, and your paradigm's allowing that to come in and you're saying, yeah, that's how it works, I'm going to start doing it. Or you could just, on faith, start to do what I did with some sense of understanding and hope. But do it with disciplined hope, not with, I'll do it when it's easy to do it, when it's convenient to do it. That's not how I went about this, you guys. And so all those things I framed up were before I was in Isogenics. 5 months before I was in Isogenics. Or was it 8? I did it in April and Isogenics showed up in August. I read it every day, and the way I was reading it, these exact things were going into my receptors in those different areas. The vacations we were taking, I had those in there. My health, living in the dream home, which is going to cost more money than I'm making as a mechanic. Infinite intelligence, God, and the way he wove it in, he answered all of those dreams because I was exercising perfect faith. I had already received them in my mind, and I had a state of excitement and gratitude. And Neville Goddard says, when I hold the images and concepts in my mind, and I've already taken possession of them, that's perfect faith. And in the Bible, it tells us that perfect faith will move mountains. Miracles happen with perfect faith. I was now incrementally increasing my ability to exercise faith with certain principles. Not really knowing how the miracles were going to show up, but that doesn't matter. I don't have to know that. I was implementing and facilitating and expediting perfect faith, and my brain was, and my discipline and my mental muscles were getting better and better at doing it. And I was committing more and more time to doing it. In fact, I would try to recall it to my mind in that way all day long, to the point where my identity was no longer a mechanic. And I was starting to get sick and nauseous every time I put my mechanic's uniform on, because what was happening to my identity? I was becoming something rather than that mechanic that had poor health and not enough money. Well, 5 or 8 months later, whenever April to August is, April, May, June, July, 5 months. 5 months later, I was yanked out of that environment, that physical environment, and put into full-time Isogenics with the health that matched what I had in my, in the book. 9 months after that, we're living in our dream home that we had taken the picture of 9 months earlier. In the same neighborhood as that house, you guys. My health was there. My wealth was there. I had a picture of time freedom with golf clubs on my back. Look, I was very specific on what my image and concept and identity of myself was, right? There was only one company that could match all of these things that I was creating the identity around. Those golf clubs on my back were a representation that I could do what I want when I want. and there's no financial repercussions. I'm wealthy. There was no other company that could match that because I'm exhibiting the perfect faith the universe has. I have to give that to Dave. And my wife wins the products at the Isogenics booth. Just let that settle in, you guys. And that's no coincidence. Everything in that book was answered through Isogenics. The leverage that I could create to have that time freedom, the health that I was expecting that was health beyond the ordinary. There was no hiccups. There was no drama with my health written into that book. It had to be the Isogenics products. Living in the house, having the money to live in the house, the leverage, the money, the health, the impact, being able to lecture now, being able to impact people's lives with incredible information that has the power to transform their lives with the transaction that we're going to make, that's creating the wealth and the impact and the contribution and the value. I was writing in notebooks, you guys, when I really started to understand this and I got the book. I filled up notepads. I was leaving nothing to chance. I detailed every area of my life, like to the 10th degree. I would just take, like these, the notepads that are legal notepads. I would just flip the page and keep writing what my life was like, what the images and concepts of myself were. And then I would read them. I would take the time to read them with detail and get into it and get into the zone while I was reading them. And as I did that every day, I got very familiar with what those concepts were when I wasn't looking at them. And they were starting to become part of me. Listen to that 30 minutes for the next 30 years of your life. What Tony Robbins says about starting to create an identity and what he says about the RAS system. We're going above and beyond that, but listen to what he says about creating an identity about yourself and the must. And so, and the things that happen, things just start, he says, stuff just starts to show up. So I was intentionally doing it in a lot of areas. That took a lot of discipline, you guys. That was like, I had to have them though. They were my must now. It was beyond hope. There was this knowing within myself, like I was getting that wisdom and intelligence that, surpasses all understanding to other people. And the amount of effort and excellence that I was putting into blueprinting my life in all of the different areas, and then putting the discipline to control my mental faculties, to not let my eyes and the environment and other people tell me, took a lot of discipline. It's not personal development at that point, it's discipline. And it's not self-betraying. There was some self-betrayal going on, but I caught it and I recognized it and I doubled down to make sure that I did the efficient actions while I was doing my vision work. Some people say, go into the movies, your imagination workshop, your meditation. But I wasn't just meditating about nothing, trying to connect with nothingness. I was connecting with a very specific, intentional blueprint. And there was no room for self-betrayal in my mind. And I'm a very disciplined person. All of us are in the things that we must have. You're very disciplined. You don't self-betray. In the things that are your identity, you don't self-betray. You do the efficient actions. You become disciplined at your identity and what it takes to keep doing efficient actions. What I did was I interrupted my identity, and that started to change everything. It started to change my efficient actions by changing my identity. No self-betrayal. I fell down, but I got back up. So I'm going down this way. No, I fell down right there. So right here I fell down and I course corrected and got back over here. Lenny asked me, Dave, how often do you do that? I said, well, I try to find the times when I'm not doing it and I get back to doing it. Why? Because it was a must in my life. And I knew I had to be proactive with it. Because the moment I let off the gas and wasn't proactively putting in these new thoughts and concepts and ideas, is the moment my brain would go back to the norm. It would go back to mediocrity because that's how my brain was wired. So I had to proactively make sure that these were being created, because the moment I stopped creating them was the moment I hung the phone up and the communication was lost. And my brain defaulted to mediocrity, comfort, no discipline. I didn't want to hang up the phone and sever the connection with what these needed to be. Now, I can tell you that in more detail here 14 years later. I didn't know all this stuff. But doesn't that, it's science, you guys. It's the exact science of getting rich. But there's a factor, the personal factor. And that is your discipline, your blueprint, your, allowing yourself to blueprint it out and not hanging up the phone. There are external factors that will cause you to hang up the phone and stop creating these. One might be a bill that shows up and it says past due. All of a sudden you hang up the phone on your image and concept and identity. If you have, I'm so happy and grateful I make $5,000 a week in Isogenics now. I'm making over $20,000 a month. That's so exciting. And then a bill comes in that says past due. Which one are you going to allow the hypothalamus to create? It's called the law of non-resistance. Take that past due bill. If you can't do anything and pay it down a little bit, open the drawer, put it in there, and shut the drawer. Out of sight, out of mind. Get back to the concepts and images, your new paradigm. And what's going to happen as you continue to do that? It's a gestation period. It doesn't happen right away. And this is what takes most people out. The gestation period. There's a principle that it says, you're not going to get it all immediately. That's why it says in the Bible, there's going to be a trial of your faith. There's a gestation period. It's a principle. When you plant a seed, a carrot seed, you don't get carrots the next day. You don't even get them a week later. But I want them a week later. I want them now. I want to plant that seed and I want it now. Sorry, there's a principle called the gestation period. And it's saying you're going to have to discipline yourself to continue to create that arrangement of chemicals, even though it doesn't look like it's happening. The rule of thumb is 30, 60, 90. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. 30 days, you'll start to see some semblance of it showing up. You'll see little things that are confirmations of it. They start to show up right away. The little confirmations start to show up right away. But you're still getting the past due bills. You still have people saying no. You still have people returning the products. Because you're not going to get it all. And if you don't frame up all the right areas, you're still going to have negative people coming into your life because you didn't frame it up correctly. But you're going to get little semblances, little glimpses, little blips of confirmations that what you're doing is bringing it to you. And then all of a sudden you think that's a right to have it all now because you're impatient. There is a principle of patience. It goes right along with the principle of the law of gestation. It takes 120 days to eat that carrot that you planted 120 days earlier. And the farmer doesn't say, oh my gosh, a week later the carrots aren't there. The farmer knows the gestation period of a carrot seed, of a potato seed, of a cucumber seed. And they're not out there like digging it up. Where is it? And then ruining it. Most people are digging it up and saying, where is it? And then they throw it out the window. There's a understanding and a wisdom and a knowledge that comes along with implementing these other things that we understand. And one of those is the law of gestation. Stay the course. 30 days, now there's more things that are confirming. They're starting to manifest in the physical world. 60 days, people are starting to wonder, what's going on? What are you doing? How do you share your compensation plan? What do you tell people? Do you lead with the products or you lead with the business? Because they're seeing these things happen in your business. And they think it's what you're doing physically. And they want to know how you're doing it. And then they try to exactly do what you're doing and it's not working for them. And then they say network marketing doesn't work. Isogenics products don't work. Because they're not doing the mental work. They're doing the physical. They're trying to mirror reflect the way you're saying something, but what's going on in their mind. Whatever's been going on in their mind before they started doing that. At 90 days, you're like, this is so awesome. This stuff really works. Thank you, God. Knowing that God plays the bigger role in it. When you understand that these are principles that God's instituted in your behalf because he loves you, you never sever yourself. You never get an ego. You stay humble. And then you realize, like Bob Proctor says, wow, I should have went for more. So, what's the next magnificent win? 30, 60, 90. And if it's not there at 90 days, it's not because this doesn't work. It's because your discipline needs to improve. The amount of time you're doing it needs to expand. The quality that you're putting into it needs to improve. It's not that the law doesn't work. The law always works, infallibly. It's that you didn't put enough quality, excellence into it, and you may not be doing it long enough. Just like if you're sharing isogenics 30 minutes a week, that's not long enough to create a team and momentum. There's a threshold. Jim Rohn says 12 to 15 hours a week. So if you're only doing this for 30 minutes in the morning every morning, and then you let your mind go into creating other normal, what you've been creating before you start, it's not enough momentum to create these and then start to create the pattern and the habitual identity behind it. But you do it long enough with that type of excellence. You only have to do it for so long. How long? I don't know. You'll know after you've done it, but typically it's 30, 60, 90 days. Blitz it. Put all the excellence you can into it, 100%. As you do that, the neurons start to connect, and neurons that fire together wire together. And over time, the neurons in your brain have taken on a whole new rewiring. They call it neuroplasticity. Now it doesn't take as much time and discipline to do it. Your brain's operating at that normal threshold now. And then when you want to create the new identity, you got to do it all over again. Because the wires that the neurons that you just wired together are set at $5,000 a week. You want to get to $10,000 a week? 30, 60, 90. Here I go again. Here I grow again. You guys get it now? Do you see why some of these phrases are out there? Birds of a feather flock together. No, chemicals in the blood that are docking in cells vibrate at a certain level and they mesh together. And so they hang out together. Just like oil and water, they're a completely different vibration. They're not a vibrational match, oil and water. So they keep their boundaries. They don't mix into each other because the vibration. Think positive thoughts. Be positive. The cup's half full. Why? Because you're going to create that kind of chemical reaction through the hypothalamus, and it's going to serve you to think positive. Now you know more about what these phrases mean on a much deeper, more profound level. And so what's going to happen? The divine connections, birds of a feather flock together. The people that you're looking for are looking for you as well. The people that were in my environment closest to me, who had the booth right here in my hometown, were the ones that brought us together. Birds of a feather flock together. We won the products at that booth. My wife was pulled towards that. She pulled me towards it. Like you can't, like a magnet, you couldn't keep it away. My wife pulled me to that booth. All right? So there's nothing about chance. There's nothing about hope. It's about discipline and knowledge and understanding. Hope has nothing to do with it at that point. Hope has nothing to do with the law of gravity right now. You're going to go outside and hope that gravity keeps you on the ground. Hope has nothing to do with you and your understanding of the law of gravity. And this is the information that God wants you to know. This is the real age of enlightenment, not some mystical age of enlightenment, true enlightenment, where knowledge and truth is going to be shouted from the rooftops. All right, what time are we at? I want to keep going for another 2 hours. I was going to show you what I had here. We'll frame this up. Maybe I'll do this during the week and make it as an attachment. Everything, if you've been following, and I've just made this template to help people frame up the blueprint in detail with all of the necessary areas. Your personal, customers, your business partners, what is all that framed up like? What's your Freedom Day look like? Framing all of that up, and then your income, you have to get into action as well. That's the receiving part. You've got to get into actions, and you've got to see yourself as a certain leader so that you're attracting the right people to match this dream up here. All of this is framed up in a way that there's no unknowing. There's nothing unknowing about you building your dream life through Isogenics. We framed it all up right here. And I did a Zoom around it. I put it as an attachment for this group, for the Empower to Have It All. It was building my Isogenics business and doing interviews and masterminding with people. We did a Zoom around it, and I explained it, and it is absolutely has everything to do with what we're doing here in the Empowered to Have It All series. So this is now on YouTube in an exemplary way of what we're doing here.
Dave?
Yeah.
That Zoom call is a mind blower. That's, that was an hour and a half of intensive, amazing. That template is going to change everything.
Oh yeah. I love doing that template now, and I love doing I used to hate doing follow-up. Why? Because I would self-betray on follow-up because of the way that people were responding on the first initial connection with people on my team and people that I wanted to help, support to become leaders. And I didn't know how to take them to that next level when they weren't doing some actions. Now I know. That template, there is nothing left to chance for me as a leader. I love following up now because there's not this unknowing, uncontrollable factor anymore. And so I love doing these templates with my team, just like I love doing presentations, because the unknowing factor, the helplessness, the paralyzation isn't there anymore. And we're going to see people going from one magnificent win to the next on a high level 4 leadership. We're going to be creating level 4 leaderships, which is very rare in the world, says John Maxwell. We're going to be pumping them out. They're going to become a dime a dozen because of that template.
Right. I agree. Amen.
All right, you guys. We need to move on with our day, get into action and go making some impact. Anybody else want to add anything before we jump off? Let me put it into where you can unmute yourselves.
Follow.
You can unmute yourself. Anybody want to share anything?
Specifically, Dave, where is that template?
In YouTube, well, it's in YouTube at Mechanic to Millionaire. I also posted it in the Forever Pack Business Group. It's called Attachment to Week 6 in Mechanic to Millionaire YouTube, that channel. So you go to YouTube, Mechanic to Millionaire. It'll be the top one because it's the most recent one that I uploaded, but it says Attachment to Week 6, the template. Ooh, say it again.
Did you actually, I think also posted this is Nancy, the template in the Facebook group?
Yeah, that was just temporary. Kathy was saying, man, I would love to have that template. And 2:30 in the morning, I woke up. After we did that Zoom, 2:30 in the morning, I woke up. You guys, thoughts were racing through my head. And I saw Kathy had asked that. So what I did is I just took a photo of it real quick and put it up.
Okay.
I'm going to make a PDF for it, you guys. I'm going to redo it. This iPad, that's an infinite whiteboard that I can write on, and it just doesn't translate into printing it on a printer. But I just put it up there so that people could at least have access to that until I had time to frame that up in a doc. Somebody could frame that up in a doc if they want, like a Word doc and post the PDF if you want to beat me to it, but I'll do it as soon as I can. Anybody else?
Yeah, Dave, it's Alex. I just wanted to say you were talking about, it was neuropeptides, the peptides that dock
Peptides, that's
on your
it.
cells.
The peptide.
Yeah.
That's what those
I'm
little
like,
arrangement of chemicals are called.
well, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because just like you said, the image that you hold in your mind creates that your hypothalamus pumps out these peptides that then dock on your cells and give you the feeling. And so when you recognize that you're feeling crappy about whatever, just recognize that, just back it up and say, well, my hypothalamus is just responding to an image I had in my mind. What was I just thinking? And how can I flip that and interrupt that so that you're not reinforcing, wiring and firing together and reinforcing, a synapse that is on autopilot, that's in your subconscious, that's running the program. So changing your identity of yourself, holding that image, creating new peptides and new feelings, it's like literally you want to feel yourself into the reality of your new identity and recognize when you're not feeling good. Yeah.
One of the things I've been doing in these with the associates that I'm working with on my team, right here, you want to have a journal. Have a journal where you're going to journal every night and you're going to critically think. And this is not, most people don't want to do this. 95%, a psychologist said 95% of people would rather die than think. But at night, every night, journal and go back through the day. It's going to take some intense thinking and causing your mind to slow down and do some introspection. Go and find those events that you self-betrayed on, both with your physical actions, so with your physical actions and your mental actions, and journal the justifications that you used in those that you identify every night, because you think you know them, and in your mind you say, yeah, you'll run them through. You need to write them down. And this is that whole name it to tame it on a very high level. As you do that every night, you're going to catch them in the moment because you're familiar with what they are because you journaled them down. And when you catch them in the moment, you'll be able to course correct before you go down this way and actually do the justification again. It might catch you again several times, but if you journal that every night, what are the actions that I'm not taking mentally and physically? And how did I self-betray? And what were the justifications I used? It's typically, I was tired. That's what's robbing everybody of their compelling reasons. Like the reason for you were born was, I was tired. You're always going to be tired. You can sleep when you're dead, okay? Just make the decision that you're not going to use that I'm tired anymore. Sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? So if you'll journal that every night, and what Alex was saying, you'll become aware of it. And in that moment of awareness, you can course correct and not allow it to take you down this pathway anymore. And the journaling will absolutely make you aware of it. That's what I was filling up my notepads with. I was identifying and then flipping it, identifying and flipping it. And I just kept writing. That's why I said I kept the 3x5 card companies in business, because I needed more because I was running out of room. All right. So that's what I was doing, was exactly what Alex was saying. And I was writing it down, not just identifying it. I was writing it down, and then I would flip it. So in that moment, I would come up with the identity that was opposite of what normally took me this way. My wired neural net was wanting to take me this way. I would flip it and come up with a new identity that would bring me this way. Right? That's very powerful. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's the practical application of what we just learned. That's the practical application and modifying your behaviors so that you're now getting a different result. Good share. Anybody else?
Hey, Dave, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Thank you for everything that you do. It's been an exciting week. This morning, this week, this year, like everything just seems so much more exciting. Once perspective changes, it seems like the whole world changes, right? And all I can think about at the end, because I don't really want to, because there's so much to talk about when you touch this topic, but all I could think about was Jim Rohn saying, we're not a tree. I'm not a tree. We can change. We can pick up and move. And then you also kind of caused me to think about the acorn, the acorn that has the oak tree inside of it, and how we're the only creature that has self-will, and it's a gift, and it's unfortunate that, I get, but that's the beauty of it though, too, because we grow in this journey. If, so it's like, so I just wanted to, I like to keep things really, really simple for myself. So I think about the acorn, because the how is extremely important. It's, the skill is very important. To be aware is to be alive and to participate, right? But for me personally, when I think about the worth that I have inside of me, that's my biggest challenge, is believing that I truly am worthy. And then I think about that acorn that has an oak tree inside of it. And then I think about what what God has created available for me, and how I'm somehow blinded, by all these, whatever, these beliefs or whatever, just these things that I've adapted. And then as they get peeled, or as, and these things are happening, you talked about like these things, you were saying something, there was two things that you were saying. And my thought was, I think it was the word patience, just for an example. And immediately you said the same word, patience. And we were talking about this collaboration. I'm like, that's the collaboration. Like we're just kind of coming together. We talk about like-minded individuals, and in the book, Think and Grow Rich, I remember hearing the example how you could put batteries together, like minds, energy. You could put batteries together, and each battery is as strong as the group of batteries. And that's really powerful, that we can connect to these calls and listen to you and take your experience, and collectively we can all become individually more powerful, more effective, get different results as opposed to if we were doing it on our own. That's extremely valuable. And you can't find it, well, I don't know of anywhere else other than network marketing to the capacity that it's available. And then, the quality of Isogenics just kind of makes it even, more so, so I'm just really excited. And with this new concept and that training that you did on Saturday is absolutely blowing lids off, to areas that, were just not obtainable, because it wasn't, so I'm excited. I'm really excited. And I hope that that's helpful. I'm really excited, and I wanted to try to just keep it really short, and it's hard to do that. So, but it's going to be a great week, great year, great decade, great life. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you everybody for their participation as well.
And right back at you. 2020 with 2020 vision, you guys. Do you see the 2020 vision? And what you were saying, I just want to go a little longer. I got to jump on Lenny's call here in 10 minutes, but I wish we could keep going. The acorn, like you were saying, and Bob Proctor uses that. It has a pattern vibration. God put it in there. That's nature, right? It can't change its vibration. But you guys, the oak tree is not in the acorn. It's in the thinking stuff. It's in the environment around it. But because of its vibration, it has to have attracted to it every needful thing to become an oak tree. So when you get your pattern blueprint dialed in, every needful thing will be attracted to you. People, circumstance, and it's the right people who love the products and who expand their isopantry, who take on an identity. If you blueprint that into your identity as a leader and as an Isogenics business person, what are your customers? What do you think they look like? And what are they experiencing? What do your business partners look like? And what are they experiencing? You could pattern that just like the oak tree has a pattern. And Bob said, if you could see with the quantum microscope, everything forming from the environment, we think, well, it's just the soil. The soil doesn't even have the oak tree in it. It manifests and collapses from the quantum stuff. And that oak tree shows up. And the bottom line is, okay, why do we need to know all this? Why do we need to go in this much depth? Because the practical application of your day-to-day life, what kind of car you're driving in right now, what kind of gas, and are you worried about the gas, or do you just put gas in? Do you go into the store and buy what you want, not dictated by the price that's on the tag? When you go to a restaurant, is it the one that you really want to take your family to, or your spouse, or is the vacation, or the lack of it comes down to that practical application and the enjoyment of your life. That's not coincidence. It's not you're born. Look, I want every one of you are magnificent beyond your comprehension. Every one of you are filled with amazing possibility. Why? Because we're all literally children of God. In the Bible, it says you are literally the offspring of God. Spiritually, we are the offspring of God and inherited all the mental faculties to create a universe. but we're not quite there yet, you guys. We've got to get to where we can create our home and what it looks like in our yard and our car and the clothes we're wearing, the schools that we get to send our kids to. That's your universe right now. Master that one and you'll go on to the next step. We're only here for a short time, but there's a whole eternity ahead of us, you guys. Again, we are literally the offspring of God. We are not an accident. We did not come from some cosmic boom. There's no chaos in anything. And the potential that lies within each one of us, but you have to discipline it. And whether you do it now or later in the eons of time, that's up to you. But there is something to learning it here in this crude element. This is the only time we're going to experience life like this as a human being. We don't come back again. There's a next level. We don't need to come back. God has the plan. And the next level is the one that's going to take you to the next level after that. And it's not about coming back here again. There's a continual process that's progressing forward. All right, so this time, take advantage of it. Don't waste it by watching stupid TV shows. This is too important. All right, you guys, with that, let's go. We'll get this up and you'll be able to watch this on YouTube. And let's move forward. We'll see you on the Zoom tonight. Get people on that present. Look at what we're bringing people into. You introduce them to isogenics. Look what we're bringing them into. Like you said, Willie, where can they get this? Nowhere else. Products, the compensation plan, the camaraderie, the community.
Yep. New time tonight for the presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Reminder.
1 hour earlier. 5:30 California time, 8:30 Eastern. Okay, guys. See you next week.
Thank you,
Bye.
Dave. Bye-bye.